Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to play with the ideas that I present on my channel. My name is Gretchen Vogel at howspiritworks.com. I wanted to talk about ritual today. And of course, here we are in the Easter season in April of 2022. I wanted to read some of what Joseph Campbell had said about ritual that I didn't include in the podcast. And it's really quite beautiful. So excuse me while I read. It's only 2 paragraphs, so hang in there. Joe and I were both brought up in the Catholic tradition, which was in Latin in the old days. And it was a totally different experience of church and ritual. So let's hear what Joe has to say about this, because this was one of my questions for him. He says, it was the ritual of the Mass, especially in Latin, that took away the language that we knew, that took away the movement and the mannerisms and all that we were accustomed to in our culture. When one participated in the ritual of the old Latin Mass, one would be transported out of the realm of everything in their tangible lives. Everything was completely different. The incense made it smell different. The sounds, the bells, the place just rang with a feeling of isolation from the rest of the world. The doors were always closed and the door squeaked, so you knew whether anybody came or went. So there was a very isolated feeling to the place, and we were transported by that ritual, much like the way he said that I am transported in my meditations. Now, he said the Mass was called the ritual of the Mass, and we kind of skip over the word ritual. He said when he experienced shamanic rituals, when he studied them and experienced them in indigenous cultures, then he understood finally why they called the Mass the ritual. He said when he was an adult, he still participated in the church because of what the ritual offered him. And he said there's nothing wrong with participating in any ritual that evokes transcendence or knowledge of self-divinity. So there is nothing wrong with participating in any religious ritual. Our neighborhood experienced a profound loss a week ago today. Bethany Anastasia, which was her middle name, which I didn't know. Anastasia means resurrection. Her family has been Russian Orthodox. I believe it's Russian Orthodox. It's not Greek Orthodox. Very, very similar rituals. And I've been to like the baptism of some of their children, but sadly, this was the funeral rites for their 27-year-old daughter who died very suddenly a week ago. Bethany was special needs, but you never saw that when you interacted with her. She was the most compassionate, loving, delightful, yet what we would call handicapped human body. And we all loved her so much. That so many people loved Bethany. Anyway, so it's been a rough week, and it will continue as I support my next door neighbor going forward with this enormous change and loss in her life. So, of course, my husband and I attended the funeral rites, the ritual, which was amazing. The singing, the a cappella singing, pretty much everything except the eulogy was sung. It was music. The other thing about this church is that if anybody has experienced an Orthodox church, there is like a public area, and then there's a room with signifying the mystery, signifying that the things that we can't understand. And this room is like opened, and it's a whole other place. And there are enormous icons. Now, I have a very small icon of my own because I have a special affection for Archangel Raphael, who's the healer. And so this gives you an idea of what the icons look like. The beauty, the incense, the bells, the singing of this ritual was incredibly beautiful and incredibly heartbreaking at the same time. So I wanted to bring up ritual. We've lost many rituals in our life, but maybe we can think of a few rituals that we still try and incorporate in our life. Now, I remember when I couldn't be a Catholic anymore because a judgmental and a loving God didn't make sense to me. Also, the emphasis on the sacrifice that Christ made, supposedly to counterbalance all the sins of humanity here. Okay, but we are responsible. We are responsible for ourselves. We can't make a choice to ascend until we understand that nobody is going to do this for us. We have to awaken our own connection with the divine, the mystery, source, whatever you want to call it. It is a personal, internal relationship. I have I have several very involved meditations on the Christ consciousness. That is real. That does exist. But it was about love and not sacrifice. And so during the Easter season of renewal, there are many metaphors that speak to renewal. Obviously, it happens in the spring, and it would have been probably in the pagan or shamanic, much older rituals to celebrate the resurrection, the renewal. So, what rituals? We had Easter baskets when we were children, but we also had Lent, which I don't know how many weeks it is, but it's a long time, maybe 6 weeks where we didn't eat meat or candy. Actually, the candy was the hard part for us kids. We didn't have any sweets. And then we had an Easter basket, and then all heck broke loose because we hadn't had any sugar in so long. So that was sort of a ritual in our house to not eat sugar and then And boy, mom made great pies and cakes and cookies. So it really was a hardship. You knew that uh, this fasting was pretty difficult. What are our rituals now? Have we lost ritual? Have we lost ritual? What blew me away about Bethany Anastasia's, did I mention that anesthesia means resurrection? What blew me away was the sense of community in this church was mind-blowing, really mind-blowing. It was very, very open too. I mean, the children were so embraced and running around, and it was okay. It was all okay. I mean, they weren't, cray-cray, but the children were welcome. The elderly were welcomed. It was a very loving, loving space. And I had been there before, but I was really listening and sort of, it was much more loving. Love was really the theme of this particular tradition. Love and joy and caring for each other, which really is, in my mind, what we're here to do. What are rituals now in our life? Do we go out walking every morning to watch the sunrise? Do we, I have a small thing that I do in the morning, which is to go outside in back of the barn and to a flat area that we have back there. And I bow to the four directions. I do a half sun salutation. Those of you who do yoga know what that is, in the four directions. And I pray or wish that the elements, that the animals, that the earth herself survive us. That's one of my rituals. Another ritual, my husband and I have coffee at some point in the day together. And we just talk about our day. We talk about what's going on. We talk about, and sometimes our meeting isn't very long. And sometimes it's quite long. And we almost channel for each other about the things that we're concerned with now. So reflect on what you do that evokes a feeling of the mystery that we all carry inside. And everything is energy to me. I've never been really drawn to metaphors for how we learn to make choices about what we're going to be in life and what we're going to do in life. I mean, when Bethany, I could see the ambulance, I could see the police cars, I could see the fire truck. I knew something was going on over there. And so of course you second guess yourself, but I did go over, and her father was on his own with all this, sobbing incoherently. And I held him and took his phone and called Bethany's mother, who was at church, and the other daughter, that there are two other grown children, so that they knew that something was going on. And the church that they belong to has what's called a burial committee. So Bethany's body was in the morgue for 3 days, and then it was brought back to their house, where they washed her body, her hair, and dressed and casketed her in the house. And Michelle said that it was incredibly comforting. It was the most beautiful thing. I don't know if I would have the strength and the faith to do that. And then her body was taken to the church where there were prayers said for her all night. This kind of ritual, this kind of community, I think is the best of humanity. And right now, as the invasion of Ukraine is raging, and so much ugliness, and this devastating sudden death for her family, and what it will take for them to go on. She was 27 years old. She contracted meningitis in the hospital. She was born perfectly normal. They advocated for her. It was amazing what, how far Bethany got in terms of being a compassionate, loving, incredibly loved. They kept her moving. They kept, they just supported her and advocated for her in so many ways. So I guess I don't really want to get into eulogizing Bethany here, but it made me connect the dots between what Joseph Campbell had said about ritual. And I perhaps think that ritual is a basic human need that we are losing. And I'm not suggesting anybody go to church. That's kind of not what I'm saying. But ritual is important to us. And maybe we're losing that. Maybe we're losing that grounding. All right, folks, that's enough for today. Thank you so much for coming to consider these ideas with me. And I wish you a happy and blessed Easter. We'll see you soon. Thank you.